Welcome everybody to our podcast, Darkness to Light. Tonight, we're joined by Paul Roberts, my co-host, and Angie Rorrer. She's a breakthrough strategist. She's a faith warrior and a woman of God who has had some supernatural experiences for you and just some amazing stuff. We're so glad to have you. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Jason. And Paul, it's wonderful to see you as well.
So Angie, when it comes to supernatural experiences, I think all three of us have had some supernatural stuff happen to us as children. Tell us some of the things that you've experienced as a child.
Well, I had a number of things as a very young child, seeing different things for me, seeing things that are spiritual was normal. So as a child, I really didn't understand that not everybody saw the things that I saw. And so as I got older, I started finding out that not everybody could see the things, because to me, it was just normal life. And so I can see, different things, dark, demonic things. I can see angelic beings and things of that nature. As a child, I did have a lot of demonic darkness that did what was surrounded me a lot. I was, had those demonic things coming after me, knowing that I didn't know any better. The interesting thing is even though it would scare you as a child, there was something in that I always knew that God had me. And so I can remember different instances. And even like when I was a little girl, my grandfather, who was my favorite pawpaw is what I called him, he died when I was 18 months old. And I was having chronic nightmares where I was struggling every single night. I was waking up screaming. My mother and father couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I started telling my mom, and I was only 3 years old, about this man that would sit in a rocking chair and keep me safe until I would fall asleep. And one day my mother was going through a photo album, and I started yelling because the man that was in the rocking chair every night that kept me safe was the man in the picture. And it turned out to be my father's dad that had died when I was 18 months old.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that was very unique and interesting. I of course, now understand, that I was being looked out. God sends his angels. He has things that cover us. And, there's just a lot of things that are walking around in the supernatural. We just don't know they're there until we encounter them.
True.
If you pick up on these things, would you consider yourself also too a psychic medium?
As a Christian, I do not consider myself a psychic medium, simply because the gifting is the same. What those that call somebody that are psychic or a medium, we all have the same gifting as far as being able to tap into the supernatural, into the spiritual realm. The source for me is what matters. My source is God, Jesus, the Son of God, and that's the source. Now, when I was younger and I was not aware of the source, I would tap into lots of different things and still do. And, so somebody that does not know Jesus as their savior, just like me, we both have what would be considered a supernatural gifting, a prophetic gifting. And, but I go straight to the Lord when it comes to what I see, what I know, and also even getting his insight on what's to come, because he is the maker of all things.
Thank you, Angie.
You're welcome.
So Angie, along the lines of things that you've experienced, is it possible for a Christian, because it's happened to me, to see demons in the spiritual realm?
It is. And as a matter of fact, I'm actually going to tie that back in, because I was thinking about something with Paul mentioning about me being a psychic, if I would consider myself one. The new age that, most people would consider that's what I do. I don't consider that. But I will tell you that walking up the line of the supernatural, we all have the ability to tap into it. Some of us are more sensitive than others. And I have gone into situations where I didn't understand what the word of God said on this or anybody else's experience, because I was kind of just flying blind and learning as I go. And I've seen things that I didn't know were demons, or seen things that I would have, paranormal activity or ghost or things growing up that I didn't know, and I would have called them different things that I have a better understanding now. I have a tendency to be able to go into buildings and go into places where traumatic things have happened and see the past, something that I've always been able to do. And that can be very, to somebody that's a Christian that's not used to that, can seem very new age, psychic, medium out there, that it's more demonic. But God, who is the maker of all things, he gives us vision of the supernatural world. So anything I see, I know he created, no matter what, darkness, demon, or angel has done with it. So yes, as a Christian, I've seen many dark things. As a matter of fact, the more you get to know the good things of God, the easier it is to spot the demons and the darkness, whether it's a feeling, whether I see it with my eyes, whether it's just a gut instinct. Sometimes I just know it, even if I don't physically see it with my eyes or in my spirit, because I can see in the natural. Sometimes it's as clear as me looking at you. Sometimes it's more like it's in my head and I can see it, but I can see it. It's just more like an imprint over top of everything. It's hard to explain sometimes the way I can view it.
That's interesting. So, I've had this discussion on this show before, but from your point of view, Angie, what is the difference between a ghost and a demon? What's the difference?
Well, and there are a lot of varying opinions when it comes to ghosts. Some people don't believe that ghosts exist. They believe that anything that's walking on earth is a demon. I do know that we have spirits that, traumatic things can happen, and there can be things that are, our supernatural world is made up of frequency. Our whole world is made up of frequency. And I understand that the frequency of things that occur stay, they resonate, they don't end. So if we speak something, even though we may not hear it, it still is going on out there in that space. And so when it comes to seeing things of this nature, I'm sorry, what was the question you asked me again? I all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I got lost there.
That's all right. What's the difference between a ghost and a demon?
Okay, sorry. There you go. All right. So the difference in a ghost will also, there are different types of demons. So you'll also have things like familiar spirits. A familiar spirit will present as a ghost very often because they are a family spirit that has watched your family lineage for years. They know how you act. They know all of the history. They know your good things, your bad things. They know how to touch your buttons. They know you better than you really know yourself, because they even know how to get you to touch your buttons to where you'll do something subconsciously and not even be aware of it. And so familiar spirits often will present as a ghost, but those are not ghosts. They are demons. One of the things you can be sure of is I've never came across a spirit that was the spirit wholly and fully of a loved one. I've come across familiar spirits that will pretend to be our loved ones. And, but I have come across a lot of paranormal activity that is left, the resonance is left in the air or in the land, the trauma on the land. So you can go into buildings and onto land and you can pick up the frequency of that. And it can present as, like I said, I can see people from the past, even in their clothes and stuff, but it's a spiritual thing. Other people will see it. It doesn't necessarily mean that is right there in that moment. We're tapping into something in a parallel dimension, into a fourth dimension in the supernatural. So even though I'm standing here in this time, I'm able to tap into that. A good example, and this is something that I don't usually share, but considering the information we're discussing here, we'll talk about this. I had an experience. Okay, so you're familiar with witches that will astral project, astral travel. Yeah. All right, so I've come across, I come across a lot of witches in my line. So I had an experience. Some of them are not always positive experiences because, some witches don't like me. So I had an experience where occasionally, one may try to astral project in your house, check you out.
Mm.
So I had an experience. I was asleep and I woke up one night. When I woke up, the moment I woke up, before I opened my eyes, I knew there was something in my room. When I opened my eyes, I saw an astral projection of a woman. When I saw her, she looked very surprised and she disappeared.
Mm.
Now, here was the crazy thing. When I had woke up, I had been having a dream. In the dream, or what I thought was a dream, I came on to understand that it was actually something my spirit had gone and was in. In this dream, I was in the past. I was in my modern day clothes, but I was in something like the 1800s, walking on cobble roads. There was a woman that I was following that I knew to be a witch. I could not hear the conversation that was going on between her and another individual, but then she came back towards me and I struck up a conversation, asked her if I could pray for her. I prayed for her, and I do not know what I prayed because, again, I did not hear those words. But as I walked away, I knew I had made a difference. So then when I woke up, I see this witch looked like the witch that was in my dream.
Wow.
Yes. And so that really threw me because I was in the past in the dream and the experience and the vision. This woman was in my house in that moment checking me out. I came to realize after doing some more research that it was really like her great granddaughter, but it was a very interesting supernatural experience. And that's, because I was in the past and at the same time. So it was very interesting because I've never had a witch be able to track me in the spirit like that and follow me like that. So that was an interesting one.
Angie, you were also too mentioning the familiar spirits who probably try to do some things and try to put in your mind to do something bad. Also too, don't you have like a guardian angel who's telling you to do the right thing? So you have these two, like one on your left shoulder and one on your right shoulder. Is that true?
Well, in a sense, yes, not quite, what we grew up watching on Tom and Jerry with the angel and the devil on each shoulder, but we all do have angels that are assigned to us. Everybody thinks, oh, well, I have one guardian angel. Well, it's not necessarily that we all have one guardian angel, but we all have angels that are assigned that are also here on earth that will do things with us and for us at the bidding of the Lord to take care of and do the mission of the kingdom that's down here and protect us, keep us safe. We don't know what kind of demonic things that actually our angels keep from happening to us. And as the saying goes with demonic spirits, with familiar spirits, there are spirits of witchcraft and other things. There are principalities, there are strongholds, not just familiar spirits. So you can have spirits and strongholds over a land and over a region and over a people and over a family and over, a home, kind of thing. So there can be a lot of different attachments. So in that, if you're in a vicinity where there's going to be spirits, yes, they absolutely will place things in your head and you'll think it's you. The same goes, we listen to God's voice. We learn. The word says that my sheep know my voice because we are to know our Father's voice. When we know his voice, we can also tell the difference between our own voice and the voice that is not of God, the demonic voices. I know lots of people that have had mental health is a real thing, but there's also a lot of very sensitive people that think they're bipolar or schizophrenic that actually are hearing conversations and things that are being said by demons, maybe sometimes angels too, but a lot of times if it's torment, if they're saying, it's always going to be demonic. Angels are never going to do anything that isn't going to be good and glorifying of God. So the demonic does, get into our heads, whisper those things, push our buttons, and also it's based on free will. If I'm serving the Lord, and a devil comes up and wants to push a button and whisper something in my ear, I have a choice. We all have a choice. I can choose to take that thought captive. Or if it's something with my mental health, I can even go get therapy because I believe in therapy and Jesus. But I also know it's a lie. So I turn my face to the high things of heaven and to the good truths of the Lord. But somebody that doesn't have that can get very caught up. Even those of us that do, you can get very caught up. I've had anxiety. I came from an abusive marriage, so I struggle with things with PTSD. These things also that are going on with us interact with the supernatural world. And so sometimes sorting through that, your emotions, all the different things, you can be fine, walk into a room, and next minute you're not, and you think it's you. But often it may be the atmosphere that is around you. Maybe somebody else near you. We talk about empaths. These are super sensitive people as well, especially children that have grown up in homes that have not had emotionally available. One of the parents was maybe not physically or emotionally available, and they kind of learn to do things on their own. As children, you learn to be more sensitive to your environment, and that carries with you into adulthood. And that is relevant when it comes to picking up, again, the supernatural frequency that is all around us.
Angie, I want to ask your opinion on something. If you pick up a newspaper, which most people don't anymore because all the news is right on the internet, you see all these things are happening. You see all these mass shootings and everything else. And as you read along, there's a lot of times where it says that the shooter was hearing voices in his head.
Yes.
Are you thinking, in your opinion, do you think that a lot of these cases where people are hearing voices, is it a mental issue, or is there something dark going on with a demonic force upon the earth that are going to all these different individuals and making them do serious crimes? What do you think?
I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. We do have, like I said, mental health. There are some real issues. Now, you cannot separate the natural and the spiritual world, because even though they're two separate places, they're still one. And so if I have a place that I feel rejected, I'm going to be more easily swayed in that rejection to feel a certain way when certain things happen. If I don't like authority and somebody, is really controlling towards me, I'm going to be more likely to get triggered. And that's where it gives familiar spirits and things of that nature the opportunity to push your buttons and whisper things and get in your head that way. Another thing is because we do tend to, our human brain tends towards the negative, we will ruminate on things. So sometimes a devil may have said it, but you ruminated on it. So it may not be the devil anymore. It may be you. So we can't always say it's a demon, it's a familiar spirit, because while that is true, there's also the responsibility that we have, because our brains can also play tricks on us. And like I said, with the rumination, especially you get into some of these cycles and patterns from trauma. And that's another thing. We have soul trauma. People that have soul trauma also have openings for more opportunity, again, for the demonic to be able to put their agenda and kind of yoke them. And so this goes on. And as we've seen through society and we've watched, it's getting worse. You're right. The shootings, the things of that nature. I think it's twofold. For one, I do think that I do know that the devil is hard at work. If you look really even at where we are and you go back 50 years, you can see how the changes even in the school system and things that have been done that have cultivated where our youth is today, where our young adults are today. This didn't just happen in the last 5 or 10 years. This has been something that has been coming. And, those that don't learn from history are destined to repeat it. So we need to look at those historical things. In the process, we also understand, me as a Christian, I understand that the Christians are not standing as the church as Christ did in his time. We're supposed to do greater deeds. So I also feel that one of the reasons why some of these things is people are not out there being kind and treating each other with the love and respect and honor that the word would have us. And we'd be a whole lot better off if we did, but that isn't what's going on. We're seeing division, we're seeing hate and anger and bitterness. and just people just tearing each other up. And social media, for all its positive things, it's also been a very major contributing factor to that. And the bad thing about social media is it also can drive people to a certain way of thinking, because you kind of follow the rabbit trail of what you're listening to on social media. And so people get sucked into that. And when they do, there also will be spirits that will also jump into things like that. So you're going to have young men that have trauma, that and young women that have trauma, that, and I mean, I know most of our shooters are typically young men that are going to hear voices. Perhaps they do have, trouble. I know a lot of these kids do drugs. One of the things about marijuana, while it can be safe for a lot of people, there are also people that are predisposed to psychosis when they smoke marijuana. They can also do permanent damage. And once that damage is done, they will have psychosis. Well, of course, it may be a demon saying something, but again, their brain is also not firing like it should. So is it demonic? Are they perpetuating this? Absolutely. But we also have seen a trend of man, because of the wickedness and the choices that we are making, we're also seeing that. So while we need to do warfare against the spiritual, we really need to learn to kind of take responsibility and love each other better.
We definitely need that, Angie.
Yes, absolutely. God, this is fascinating, right, Paul? I mean, I knew this was going to be good. But
and it's so funny too, because what Angie's talking about is all true. And there was just this one case that I came across, and it happened last year. These two guys, one of them was a TikTok star. I mean, he had like 15 million people watching him, and a great kid and everything else. He went to the movie theater with his buddy. They were watching The Purge. And some other guy with two other guys, he was hearing voices in his head and said, go home and go get your gun. And his two friends were in the parking lot, and they saw him pull up. He walked into the theater with his gun. He didn't know the TikTok star or his friend. And something in his head says, go shoot him. And that's what he did. He shot him dead for no reason at all, except he's saying the voices in his head. And they said this guy never got in trouble. Nice kid, everything else. And then just for this one fluke, this one day that he does that. And now he's sitting in court and he's wishing he never did that. And he apologizes to the family. That is so freaking bizarre, because this kid has never been in trouble, does something so bizarre like that. And then he said that the voices were telling him, you must kill them because they're going to kill your family. That is bizarre.
Did he explain when they were telling him whether or not he tried to resist, or did he just...
No, he didn't. He was just going with it. He actually thought his family was in danger.
Okay, so he was in psychosis. Yeah, another thing that does tend to happen as well in these situations is, I'm sure you're familiar with multiple personalities or DID. And, they tend to talk about that it's not that common. I think it's far more common than what we realize. I don't think it gets diagnosed as often as what maybe we would like to see.
Prime example, I'm sorry, Angie, a prime example is Kenneth Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler. He had a multitude of personalities, and he committed his serial killings.
Right. And see, sometimes, that's one of your well-known, and he had multiple personalities, but sometimes what happens is when a child is young, something happens and it causes that soul to shatter. And it might just be one personality to start with, aside from their own. And then later it can be shattered more into multiples, into even more. But sometimes people will live with those another multiple personality and not know it for years, because they've never lost time. They don't have any experiences. And then sometimes something can happen like that. And I've seen that happen, and they vaguely are aware, or they don't even remember it. And the thing with this, with multiple personalities, is the demonic has influence over each personality. And so in order to really get the influence of the demonic, even if you get one of those free, you have to get the other personalities, and you have to reintegrate the soul. So you really get into a lot of things when it comes to people like that they hear it, but there's something that drove them. Why? What was it? And that can be really difficult to understand. You know, why do some people listen to the voices? Some people don't. I wish I had answers, you know, but it's sad when it does happen.
Oh, it's very sad. Yes.
Yeah. And I also think, well, you know, also when it comes to people having demons, possession, oppression, you know, people can do things, you know, demons don't have a human body. So they kind of like to jump on us and use our meat suit to do what they want. And that can occur as well. And, you know, people will be like, oh, a demon made me do it. And sometimes it's not true. It's just them saying that. But I have had situations where I've been doing deliverance and people they're conscious, but the demon is speaking and they're trying to figure out in that conscious, like they're kind of half asleep, trying to figure out who's talking through their mouth. And so I do know that there are times that they're vaguely aware, and other times that they're not. And I've talked to people that will switch through demons or switch through personalities and won't even be aware of it too. So,
Angie, I got a quick question. Can a person be susceptible to possession or oppression if they go to a spiritist or a witch for, let's say, a psychic reading, or it could be something like a seance or something like that?
Oh, yes. Yes. And that's the thing about the kingdom. Which kingdom is this coming from? And that's why when I do have these conversations, you know, and I get asked questions about being a psychic or a medium, I'm very clear. No, psychics and medium work for a different kingdom than I do, even though we may be able to tap into the same supernatural thing. We work for different kingdoms. So yes, my source is God. He is the maker of all things, and my source is pure. Any other source, and when I was younger, you know, I'd mess with Ouija boards and all those different things because I was very attuned to the supernatural. At that time, I didn't know any different. It just came so naturally to me. But consequences come with that. So the demons will try to convince you that there isn't any, and you know, there's lots of people that have sold their soul for fame, but there are consequences. If you go to a palm reader or a spiritist or to a witch, there's going to be some kind of consequences. You may not see it right away. The thing that you wanted, you'll get, but there will be, whether it'll be some kind of sickness, whether it'll be something else, there will be consequences. Your soul, I've seen people that are tormented by demons and they have no joy, but what they basically sold their soul to the devil. They've got all this money, but they have no joy, but the demons are tormenting them. Their minds are tormented. They can't sleep, you know, and they're just miserable. And so when we open ourselves up to that, we are saying, hey, I'm a vessel here and I'm open and for you to come over here, because I'm not protecting myself from that. I'm going to listen to this witch. I'm going to ask this witch to do necromancy and talk to the dead. I'm going to ask questions to get the answers I want. I want her to tell me my future. And like I said, they can actually be more accurate than most Christians, because, you know, that's just the reality. They understand how to speak to familiar spirits and get that information. The bad part about it is you may get instant gratification, and we live in a society that loves microwave instant gratification. But I'm telling you, when it comes to your soul, when it comes to your family, you are making promises and playing with things that you don't want to have to reap the consequences of. And so your better bet is to stay away from that sort of thing. It doesn't mean that you can't go to the Lord and hear the things of God that are out there for you. Just make sure you're going to the pure source of the creator of the universe rather than somebody that's tapping into a familiar spirit.
Angie, do people contact you if they have problems with demons or they have ghostly hauntings? Are you do you do like a little bit of paranormal investigating?
What I do, people do contact me when they're having issues. I do a couple of different things. If people are having issues with demons themselves personally, where they're being tormented, or in their family, I will, one of two things. One, I do deliverance and do some things that can help that. Also, I train people how to battle that as well. So sometimes, I've got to address the demonic, but they also have their responsibility and what they need to do to walk it out. I also teach people about, praying through their homes and things of that nature, and cleansing their homes and getting rid of things that should not be in your homes, because you can also invite things in by having demonic or things that you may not even realize that are open portals. Plus, I also train people about, because when it comes to witches and then portals and ley lines and things like that. So I try to equip people so that they can go on themselves, so they're not dependent upon me. But I do have a lot of people that come to me that are struggling, that I'll counsel or I'll do deliverance. I have been to many houses that are having issues. But usually it's because somebody in the house is being tormented. It's not the house so much itself, but it can be lineage, because there can be generational things if it's like a family home and things of that nature. Usually when people are reaching out to me for things like that, it's because they have a child or somebody that's being tormented, and there's some kind of family covenant with darkness that's been made. And working with the parents and with the people, will kind of go through with the Lord what that looks like to see what needs to be cut off, because it's really not about the property itself. It's just like, I live in this house that I bought, and somebody owned it before I did. Well, I come in, I stake the land, I claim the land, I pray over it. And while there may be things that may want to mess with me, the very fact that I'm here and that I've already set down my authority in this space, that's like a no trespassing sign in the spirit. Don't mean they're not going to try. So the house itself isn't as big of an issue as really talking to the people that are in it. Now, like I said, there are places that do have those traumatic things that the resonance that is left, that it's got that, resonance that's there, that you sometimes do have to deal with. But usually still it has to do with the people that are in the vicinity or in the house or in the region.
Yeah, and in some houses that I investigate, the residual energy replays itself over and over again, because it was something that was so negative, and so just replacing. So I tried to cleanse that energy. I do use holy water, and I do a Catholic house blessing. What state are you from?
I've moved to Virginia. So I live in Southwest Virginia now. Okay. And I was in the Carolinas, but now I live, where are you at?
I'm California.
Oh, okay. I was out there many years ago.
And Virginia has a lot of paranormal stuff going on.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We have all this, Civil War history and American Revolution and Indians and everything else. So also one thing, when it comes to land or places having that resonance, that like, it's almost like a goo, I call it, because it like leaves it there, residue. That's the word I'm looking for.
Right.
I also have seen when there's been a trauma, one of the things when I'm teaching people about their own gift, because this is what I do, I teach people, because people are picking up on the supernatural, they just don't realize it. It's like when you see pictures in your head, or somebody reminds you of somebody and you look back and, oh, that's not actually the person that you just thought, or that shadow that you just thought you saw somebody, but there's nobody there. You're tapping into things. So when I'm talking to people, one of the things you have to understand is that because those resonance, those frequencies are there are times that we will catch it and not even realize that we got caught in that loop, like you said. But also there can be an assignment that can also tap into it. For example, I'm going to give you one example, and then I'll explain to you the example that'll explain this. Years ago, there used to be this intersection I used to drive through when I lived in South Carolina. Every time I went through this intersection, I would I would see it flash into my head like it was almost right in front of me. It was so vivid. An 18-wheeler that had gotten to an accident with a car in that intersection. Every single time I'd go through the intersection, I'd be looking around to make sure there was no 18-wheeler. This happened repeatedly. I could not go through that intersection without seeing it. Same thing over and over and over again. Well, one day I realized, because I had been wondering, why do I keep seeing this? And the Lord showed me that it was that residue that was replaying in that intersection. Once I realized that, after that, it didn't hit me the same way, because now I kind of am like used to it. And it's almost like my antenna came down, because it's also like building a muscle. The more you build it, the more you can come into contact with, and it doesn't smack you upside the face so hard. But I did have an incident, and this one is extremely different. I had an incident driving home through Indiana on our way home. And at that time we lived in South Carolina, and we were driving at night, and my two daughters, who are now 22 and 20, they were teenagers and they were with me. And my oldest daughter, who's 22, she was driving. And somebody had spoken a curse over us that I was not aware of. And we were driving down the road, and I had a funny feeling something was not right. And my daughter that was driving, she said, "Mom, something's not right." So when that happened, I started to pray. When I started to pray, things got crazy. All of a sudden, my daughter, who was driving, could not see. Everything went black.
Wow.
And we're driving 70 miles an hour down the interstate, and my other daughter's in the back seat, and she says, "Mom, I can't see." And I'm like, "What do you mean you can't?" She's like, "Literally, I can't see anything."
That is scary.
Yes, very scary. It's amazing that we both maintained calm. It was God. And I said, "Okay, I need you to take your foot off the accelerator, and I'm going to help ease us over to the side of the road. And then I'm going to need you to stop." And so we start easing off to the side of the road. She hits the brake, but when she hits the brake, we're still partially too far into the road. Fortunately, at this point, there's no cars around us. I said, "Babe, what are you doing?" And she slams it into reverse and starts to hit the accelerator. But she was battling her own body when that happened. And inside, she was freaking out, because something was trying to get her to back up into the traffic. So I snatched it into park. She jumps out of the car. When she jumps out of the car, she is standing in the middle of the 4-lane. I run over, grab her, and pull her out, because she's blind. She can't see anything. She starts vomiting. The minute she starts vomiting, she can see. So we get back into the car, get down to the gas station and stop, and everything, to have a conversation about what just happened. And what had happened is there was a curse and something that had happened on that land. And there was a window that the word curse that had been spoken hit. It was like everything aligned at the wrong time, but the right time for this curse. And it was a death assignment. My daughter told me about how she was aware, she was conscious, but it was like something else was trying to make her move her body, to move the car into traffic. And she was fighting it. And all she kept thinking is, if my sister and my mom, I'll never forgive myself, because she's freaking out, kind of thing. It was a very short thing that, to explain it, sounds like, but afterwards it was, it's the reality of it, because it was very scary. Like I said, she stayed calm. I stayed calm. It wasn't until after the fact, but God had us. But this is the thing about not understanding that sometimes things that are on land, it can be cursed. And the people that are living there and in that region don't understand why they keep having issues or why bad things happen. And sometimes it is what that residue is. And we simply can pray and find out what that is and remove it, but we have to have the knowledge and understanding to remove it, because that land is supposed to be blessed and prospered, not cursed.
Angie, your story gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That story would just shook me up.
Yeah, it was really intense.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird, but it sort of reminds me of a story that happened to this family. I think they were cursed. Every night they kept on hearing that airplane coming close to their house. And every night that sound of that airplane was closer and closer and closer. So one night they said, okay, we're staying in the motel because it sounds so close. Something's trying to tell us this house there's going to be a plane that crashes into our house. So let's stay in the motel. They stay in the motel, and guess what happens? The plane crashes into the motel.
Oh, wow.
God.
Yeah. Yeah. They were safe in their own house. So I believe that was a trickster type demon curse on the family. Something weird was definitely going on.
Definitely. And here's the thing. As we talk about all these paranormal things, and I know that people can get quite frightened by them, although there's no reason to be frightened. And whether you're a believer in Christ or whether you're not, if you're not, then, find somebody that is. But as a believer in Christ, I have the authority over all things. So none of the demonic, none of the familiar spirits, none of the residue can they try to scare me? Oh, absolutely. But they don't have the authority that is above Christ, because Christ is authority above them. So through him, we don't have to deal with their shenanigans. And there are times that people have had a curse put on them. And if they'd have stayed in the house, it may have hit the house. They stayed in the hotel, it hit the hotel. And unfortunately, and they were if they would have known, that's the thing. It's like sometimes we don't know what we don't know, hindsight being what it is, And but the supernatural world is live and active and just as real as my skin and you are here today.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Angie,
I agree with that. You too, Jason?
Yes, absolutely. I told you, man, this stuff that Angie had to say tonight was just going to be off the charts.
Oh yeah, it's off the charts. All right.
Yeah. So, Angie, before we run out of time, you have a special event coming up on July the 29th online, and the name is Witchcraft of Narcissism. Explain to us what that is.
Well, the witchcraft and narcissism, first off, I'm taking the supernatural, the spiritual world, which is what I do, and also using your psychology, your psychological terms when it comes to things of narcissism. Narcissism is rampant in society today, far more than we've seen in years past. And what we have to understand is that when we see what we call a narcissist, we have to understand the witchcraft and the spirits that are involved, because whatever's going on in the natural is also going on in the spirit and vice versa. So when we can look at the people that are behaving in this way, and we have to understand the behaviors and the boundaries that are needed in that to have healthy relationship or cut off relationships from these toxic people, we also need to be able to combat them in the spirit, because that's really where the battle is the spirit. And these spirits will send people in, or they'll come in and they'll mess up your businesses. They'll get into your churches, your families. They want to wreck families, and with all the division you're seeing, you see what these spirits are doing. So we are going to dig into talking about the narcissism and what those spirits are that are really driving that agenda, and the witchcraft that's behind it, and how we can combat it in our daily lives.
Wow, that is fascinating. I'm definitely going to be there. I don't want to miss that, Paul. I don't know.
Yes, yeah,
Paul, I don't know if you want to attend, but yeah, put you down too. Okay, great. Yes, definitely. So, Angie, how can people attend this event?
Well, if you'll go to either your website, Jason, at Circle of Friends Club, or my website, which is Angie, A-N-G-I-E, Roars, like a lion, guys, ROARS.com, AngieRoars.com. And you'll see there's under classes, or even I think on my homepage, there's a place where you'll see the Witchcraft and Narcissism. Click that link, sign up, and I'll see you in just a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Write it down.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm going to include all that information on this interview, so everybody will be able to see it. What are your social media handles, Angie, on Instagram and Facebook?
Okay, Instagram and TikTok, I'm Angie Roars, just like my website. And then on Facebook, you could probably look up Angie Roars, but my last name is spelled R-O-R-R-E-R. So Angie Rorrer on Facebook. But like I said, if you find me on Instagram, you can definitely find me back over on Facebook.
Wonderful. Angie, we have got to have you back on this show. I mean, this was just, a phenomenal time. We got to do it again.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
Paul is in agreement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 2 thumbs up.
Okay.
Yes. Angie, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Angie. You're wonderful.
Thank you.